Hare Krishna. I welcome everybody to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Nitya Krishna Prabhuji to enlighten us on topic Srimad Bhagavatam 4th canto 23rd chapter 8th verse onwards. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Thank you so much Prabhuji for joining and giving your valuable time and association this morning. We are very fortunate to have you on the call today, Prabhu. Please take over the call, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Danvat Pranam, all glories to the assembled Vaishnavas, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for this opportunity. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskruta Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nastaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Yatama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. So once again, welcome to this Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call and the opportunity to discuss this most glorious Srimad Bhagavatam, the ripened fruit of all Vedic knowledge. So beg the blessings of all assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis so that we may have a nice discussion today as we approach the end of 2019 and prepare for a great 2020. We can discuss today, been asked to discuss Canto 4, Chapter 23, Text number 8. And the title of the chapter is Maharaj Pritu's Going Back Home. What a glorious title. So text 8 again. Dene krama anusidena dvasta karma malashaya pranayamai saniruddha shadvargas china bandhana. Dene. Thus, by practicing such austerities, krama, gradually, anu, constantly, siddhena, by perfection, dvasta, smashed, karma, fruit of activities, mala, dirty things, ashaya, desire, prana ayamai, by practice of pranayam yoga, breathing exercises, sun, being, niruddha, stopped, shat vargaha, the mind and the senses, china bandhana, completely cut off from all bondage. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses, and by such control he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activities. Purport. The word pranayamai is very important in this verse because the Hatha yogis and the Ashtanga yogis practice pranayam, but generally they do not know the purpose behind it. The purpose of pranayam, or mystic yoga, is to stop the mind and senses from engaging in fruitive activities. The so-called yogis who practice in Western countries have no idea of this. The aim of pranayam is not to make the body strong and fit for working hard. The aim is worship of Krishna. In the previous verse, it was specifically mentioned that whatever austerity, pranayam, and mystic yoga practices Prithu Maharaj performed were performed for the sake of worshipping Krishna. Thus, Prithu Maharaj serves as a perfect example for yogis also. Whatever he did to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The minds of those who are addicted to fruitive activities are always filled with unclean desires. Fruitive activities are symptomatic of our polluted desires to dominate material nature. As long as one continues to be subject to polluted desires, he has to accept one material body after another. So-called yogis, without knowledge of the real purpose of yoga, practice it in order to keep the body fit. Thus they engage themselves in fruitive activities, and thus they are bound by desire to accept one another body. They are not aware that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna. In order to save such yogis from wandering through different species of life, the Shastras warn that in this age such yogic practice is simply a waste of time. The only means of elevation is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. King Prithu's activities took place in Satya Yuga, and in this age the practice of yoga is misunderstood by fallen souls who are not capable of practicing anything. Consequently, the Shastras enjoin Kalau nashta eva nashta eva nashta eva gatir anyatha. The conclusion is that unless the karmis, jnanis, and yogis come to the point of devotional service to Lord Krishna, their so-called austerities in yoga have no value. Naraditaha. If Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not worshipped, there is no point in practicing meditational yoga, performing karma yoga, or culturing empiric knowledge. As far as pranayam is concerned, chanting of the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy are also considered pranayam. In the previous verse, Sanat Kumar instructed Maharaj Prithu to engage constantly in the service of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasha bhaktya karmashayam gahitam udgradhayanti santah. Only by worshipping Vasudeva can one become free from the desires or fruitive activities. Outside of worshipping Vasudeva, the yogis and jnanis cannot attain freedom from such desires. Tadva narikta matayo yatayo apiruddha shotaganastam aranam bhaja Vasudevam. Bhagavatam 4:22-39. Here the word pranayam does not refer to any ulterior motive. The activities aim to strengthen the mind and senses in order to engage them in devotional service. In the present age, this determination can be very easily acquired by chanting the holy names Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Anchakalpa Tarubhyascha Krupa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Devatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So, welcome to this discussion on this Sunday morning. Thank you once again for this opportunity to try to repeat what we've heard in discussing this fourth canto, 23rd verse, text 8. I'll just read the verse again. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses, and by such control he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activities. So, just a little bit of context and review of some prior verses, just to set up where we are in this section. So, we're continuing and nearing the completion of the discussion of the most glorious activities of King Prithu. showing us the perfect model for ruling. He is the incarnation of the ruling force of the Lord, and is this Shaktivesh avatar. So in this section, Prithu Maharaj, in this chapter specifically, is showing his perfection of detachment from the power and royal opulences of ruling the world, and how he very enthusiastically is pursuing this Vanaprastha ashram. In reading all the tapasya he is performing, sometimes we can think how fortunate we are to be born in this age of Kali. Sometimes we think, wow, this age of Kali is so difficult and so degraded, yet it has this great benediction, having all of us born so recent relative to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, that just as Prabhupada said, by chanting the holy names of the Lord, he says simply chanting, one does not need to undergo all this austerity, standing neck deep in cold water, being surrounded by 5 forms of heat, subsisting on bark and dried leaves. Sometimes it makes us wonder, wow, we are fortunate that such austerity is not required of us. And we can be grateful in appreciating how much austerity Prithu Maharaj was performing. But in the last verse, a very important point is made, that the austerities Prithu Maharaj were performing were for the pleasure of Krishna. We've seen in Srimad Bhagavatam and elsewhere, various personalities performing intense austerity, but for a very different purpose. Hiranyakashipu being most notable, we'll discuss in the 7th canto. He performed very intense austerity, but for a very misinformed purpose. So Prithu Maharaj's purpose of austerity was, we can say anukulyena, was with a favorable intention, was for the purpose of pleasing Krishna, and thus his austerity becomes part of pure devotional service. And we see here a principal theme, that the point of controlling the mind and senses is very key to success, and very important. And the general theme in these verses is that what is the best way then to control the mind and senses? And we see how Prithu Maharaj was doing so, and Srila Prabhupada in the purports is guiding us in our current situation. The best way is to practice devotional service. It is simple, it is enjoyable. The intense austerities we see here are very difficult, and in this day and age, we can say impossible. And so we're getting, very nice guidance that performing devotional service is the best means, and specifically the chanting of the holy name. So this is what we're seeing in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. So now we'll begin to discuss text 8. I wanted to discuss a little bit in the beginning about this Maharaj Prithu becoming steadfast in spiritual life. It is the ultimate achievement of our progress in spiritual life. It is the ultimate sign of one's progress in devotional service, is to become steadfast. It is our goal. And here we see Prithu Maharaj was not the least bit swayed by all the opulences and power. He was not begrudgingly renouncing all of that, but quite enthusiastically was relinquishing that to achieve the higher purpose, the ultimate purpose, which is spiritual life. And this steadiness in devotional service is something we all can aspire for. And we see Rupa Goswami gives us some guidance in Nectar of Instruction to be utsahan, this enthusiastic, to overcome these obstacles, to be steady in devotional service is a key piece of the formula to be successful. He gives us 6 aspects of, or 6 activities that can lead to success, and one of those is being enthusiastic. He guides in the 7th verse how steady we should be, that 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we should be engaged in devotional service. And in Nectar Devotion, he presents the characteristics of one in Bhava Bhakti. and explaining that one perseveres through obstacles, through setbacks. One is fully consumed. So we see this characteristic of being steadfast and steady as a symptom of one's very high position in devotional service, and it sets a mark for us and a goal to be very steadfast. So I was appreciating in this verse the discussion of how by performing these austerities, Prithu Maharaj was becoming steadfast in spiritual life. And then in the next piece of that first sentence in this verse, it connects how to become steadfast. And it is that one, it is connected to being free from all desires for fruitive results. When we boil it all down, it seems like we have so many options in life, but in reality, we really only have two choices. Either we are going to serve our own senses, or we're going to serve Krishna's senses. That is our entire existence. Either I'm going to serve my own senses or Krishna's. And when one becomes steadfast, they have made the very intelligent decision that they are only going to serve Krishna's senses, and thus they become free from all other fruitive activities. And this is the outcome of practicing devotional service. Krishna explains this resolute person in Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 2, verse 41, he discusses this vyavasayatmika buddhi, this fixed intelligence in devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada opens that purport with a very wonderful statement. He says that a strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is vyavasayatmika buddhi. He's saying that when one has a strong faith that Krishna consciousness is the means to be elevated to perfection of life, that is this fixed intelligence. And when one has this faith, then one performs no other activity, because no other activity will give perfection of life. And thus one becomes single-minded, as this verse indicates, and one becomes very steadfast. But when there are material desires present, when we have desires for fruitive activities, we have shifting priorities. We get pulled in different directions because we don't have yet this strong faith that it is only bhakti that will give perfection of life. We don't have faith that Krishna says all material activities end in misery, from the highest to the lowest. But because we don't have faith in that statement, we remain fixed in our fruitive desires. So this steadfast nature in spiritual life, it comes with the position of being free from all material activities. And thus Krishna explains in that one who is on this path is resolute and single-purposed. But one who is not, he says, is multi-branched. Means we have many different initiatives. And thus our effort, our energy becomes diluted. If I am only focused on one activity, I can put all of my energy into that activity. As soon as I enter two ideas, now I have to split 50-50. If I split them equally, 30% each, and so on and so forth. And so a critical aspect of being steadfast is becoming free from this material activities, from these fruitive activities, right? And so this purifying our desires is critical. And Prithu Maharaj did this by the process of intense austerity. So, and again in this verse it says, by thus practicing severe austerities, this result happened. Prithu Maharaj became steadfast and was completely free of all material desires. So these things, the free of material desires and being steadfast go hand in hand. To the degree we lessen our material desires, to the more degree we can become steady in devotional service. And when we can fully purify the heart, when we become anartha nivritti, free of all anarthas, then nishta, we become fixed in devotional service can manifest. So this is our objective. And we see that Prithu Maharaj was following the process of pranayam. to control the mind and senses. And so we can discuss a little bit about pranayama, but then we'll discuss what's the recommended process for us in this day and age. So this process of pranayama within the Ashtanga Yoga process ultimately is not recommended for us, and we'll discuss a little bit about that, and then come to the essence of this verse, which is how to focus on the chanting of the holy names as the means to become free from all of our material desires, as the means to become steady in our devotional service, and as the means to go back home, as Prithu Maharaj is doing and showing us with perfect example in this pastime. So Krishna discusses this Ashtanga Yoga process in chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. And in the beginning of this chapter, Krishna very wonderfully glorifies the mind when it is controlled, when it is one's friend, and the glories of a controlled mind. And he speaks about how one is able to, tolerate so many things, and even seeing friend and enemy equally, and fame and infamy, and honor and dishonor, and so many wonderful qualities of the mind are glorified here. And then Krishna begins to explain this Ashtanga Yoga process. And Ashtanga means there's 8 pieces, 8 parts of this yogic process. And the goal of Ashtanga Yoga is to have darshan, to see the Paramatma within. So we are speaking about the second level of God realization, not yet at the level of bhakti, but at the level of Paramatma realization, from Brahman realization elevating to Paramatma realization. And so this Ashtanga Yoga process is a means by which one can see and perceive the super soul from within. And it's a very intense process. And overall, pranayama, it's a physical process to bring control of the mind and the senses to achieve a spiritual success. And Srila Prabhupada speaks in the opening paragraph that this purpose of pranayama is vastly misunderstood. We see today pranayama being emphasized as a means to make a very fit body, so that one can pursue various sense enjoyment, to enhance one's ability to enjoy the body. One performs pranayama. But that is not the purpose of pranayama. Pranayama is a purpose of reconnecting the spirit soul back with Krishna. It is ultimately for the purpose of self-realization, not to enjoy the body and one's senses more emphatically and more enthusiastically. This is widely misunderstood and mispresented into particularly today's society. There are so many classes you can take on pranayama, but this pranayama, now it is the 4th process of these 8 processes of Ashtanga Yoga. And so just briefly, the first 2 processes are yama and niyama. And before we can even come to pranayama, one must complete the yama and niyama stages. And in the yama, the don't, the things that we must avoid or control, one must become fully celibate, have no sense desires. And this immediately rules out most practitioners of Ashtanga Yoga. Controlling all of the sense desires and becoming, renouncing all of them. That is, virtually rules out all of us. Then we have the niyamas, the things that we must do. We must go to a very secluded place, renounce all of our material possessions. If yamas don't disqualify us, then usually the niyamas do, going deep into the forest and renouncing everything is the second step of this Ashtanga Yoga process. Then we come to the asanas, the actual seating positions, and it's explained one must sit on a kusha grass atop a deer skin on an elevated seat deep in the forest. And why a deer skin? To keep the snakes away, so you can get a sense of the remoteness of where one must practice this ultimate process of Ashtanga Yoga. It is not in the city dwellers that we all live in, but it is actually in very deep into the forest where one is not disturbed by the different things that are taking place around us. Then the asanas come, and from after the asanas, getting into the seated position with eyes half closed, focusing on the tips of the nose. The eyes are half closed, so much that we're not fully open to observe everything around us, but not fully closed that one falls asleep. And so one brings the eyes to a half-closed position, focusing on the tip of the nose in these different asana positions. Then one begins to do pranayama, controlling the breathing. And this controlling of the breathing is to help slow down and bring control to this mind and senses. Once practicing pranayama, we come to the fifth stage, which is pratyahara, where all the senses are withdrawn. And from there, dharana, the mind becomes controlled, then dhyana, the meditation on Lord Vishnu begins, and finally the eighth step, this complete absorption, this trance, this samadhi occurs. So this is a very elaborate process that's described, and one must follow them. You can't just pick and choose a piece of it and expect the results. If you do pranayama, you'll get some very significant benefit. You can feel the effects in the body, but that is just a fraction of what the full opportunity from pranayama is when one follows it in this Ashtanga Yoga process. Now, this Srila Prabhupada is guiding us, though, in this purport, and we see it also in the Bhagavad Gita, even 5,000 years ago, at the very beginning, or you can say the end of Dwapara Yuga, Arjuna completely threw out this process, saying, Krishna, this is impossible. It's easier for me to try to capture the wind with my hands than it is to try to control the mind through this Ashtanga Yoga process. And Krishna, agrees and completes this chapter by saying, the highest of all yogis is not the Ashtanga yogi. It is the bhakta, the one practicing devotional service. He says, Yoginam api sarvesha madgate nantaratma shaddavam bhajate yomam same yuktam umattamaha. That this highest of all yogis is not the Ashtanga yogi. It's too difficult. It's impractical in this age. And Srila Prabhupada, comments that this pastime is taking place in Satyuga. In Satyuga, the prescribed process of self-realization is meditation. In which case one can, attempt to take to this process. But in this age of Kali Yuga, our shastras enjoin that it should not be followed. It cannot be followed. And it cannot achieve the desired result, which is a controlled mind and senses for the practice of devotional service. So it just cannot happen. We see then, in the second paragraph, Srila Prabhupada comments on, the dangers of this uncontrolled mind, these material desires. He calls it pollution. The pollution is something bad for us. This is the result of these material desires is repeated birth and death. And speaking very strongly about our need to stop this desire to dominate material nature, to try to enjoy our senses. It is a pollutive mentality, and it destroys our attempts for progress in devotional life. And so in our own practical day-to-day life, understanding, what is what is the harm? I have these few lingering material desires. It's no big deal. We see, what is the harm of pollution in the heart? It's very significant, and it ultimately will preclude us from being very steady and steadfast. And so if we are finding ourselves, struggling with steadiness in devotional service, we can try to do some introspection and maybe analyze, where are my material or fruitive desires present? Sometimes they're very subtle. Sometimes they're not so obvious. But if we, objectively do some introspection, we'll find these things, and by trying to rid ourselves of them, we can make some progress and steadiness. And how to rid ourselves of these fruitive desires, brings us really to the essence of this verse and the purport that Srila Prabhupada makes at the end of the second paragraph. He says the only means of elevation is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It is the only means, he says. And at the end, I'll just read the last sentence again. He says, in the present age, this determination can be very easily acquired by chanting the holy names Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So what determination? In the previous is to get to strengthen the mind and senses in order to engage in bhakti. How can we strengthen the mind and senses to bring them to the platform of bhakti? It is by chanting. It is by chanting. It is by chanting. Any other means is not going to work in this day and age. And so in the prior eras, yeah, it may be possible, but in this age, it is only by chanting of the holy names. And Srila Prabhupada makes a very strong point earlier in the previous paragraph that all the activities of karma yoga and jnana yoga and ashtanga yoga and all mystic yoga, it must come to the point of bhakti for that to have any value. He says, the austerities, to come to that point, it has no value unless one comes to devotional service. It's like preparing a meal that you're going to offer to the Lord. You may acquire wonderful ingredients. You may chop them very nicely. You may cook them with the perfect amount of cooking and put all the spices. But if you don't finish it with adding the right amount of salt, all that effort has no value. That it's not complete. So like that, devotional service is what completes one's austerity. And we saw this in the last verse where it was very clearly articulated that the austerities were for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. That is bhakti. That is devotional service. That is the only objective in devotional service, which is to please Krishna. As I mentioned earlier, we only have two choices, either to serve our senses or to serve Krishna's senses. That is it. Right? So now we can discuss a little bit about this chanting. Prithu Maharaj was performing this pranayam to strengthen the mind and senses so that they can be engaged in bhakti. The mind, it's a very powerful tool. When we engage it in devotional service, it is a tool to help us, remember all the wonderful aspects of Krishna, all his transcendental qualities, the images of his sweet and beautiful form, all of his different pastimes that just enchant and captivate the heart. Where all these ideas are stored, they're stored in the mind, and the senses. The senses are beautiful. Our eyes allow us to see the beautiful form of the Lord. Our ears allow us to hear all the nectarian activities of the Lord. We've seen in previous verses how Prithu Maharaj was praying for having millions of ears so that he could hear the glories from the pure devotees of the Lord. The nose to smell the wonderful flowers offered to the Lord. So the senses are a very powerful tool to enable us to experience Krishna. So while we often think of the mind and senses as very dangerous, we can also appreciate them as very wonderful and powerful tools to help us explore and understand Krishna and connect with him. Right? So the key for us is not to shut down the mind and senses, but to simply engage these very powerful tools with Krishna. And that determination to do so, to control the mind and senses, is again coming by the process of good chanting. By taking to this process of chanting the holy names of the Lord, one can remain very determined to not let the mind wander, to not let the senses roam freely, but to engage them in a very beneficial work, which is to engage in the rendering of devotional service. So, as we approach New Year's in a couple of days. This is the time of New Year's resolutions. We're trying to become very resolute, right? A resolution means I'm going to become fixed. And Krishna has spoken about being resolute in purpose. This vyavasaya mukta buddhi. So, what kind of resolutions, can we pursue? Even in spiritual life, we make so many resolutions about how to improve, become free of envy, or become more compassionate or tolerant, or maybe rendering more service. But one idea, and we see emphasized here, is being resolute in our chanting will actually bring about all other good desired qualities. It is the single activity, you can say it's like the root of the tree, that if we focus very squarely on improving the quality of our chanting, then all these other things will automatically develop. That they are the result of progress in devotional service, and they will, by good and sincere chanting, they will bring the mind and senses into control. And so one doesn't have to artificially go out and try to control the mind. It is the result of good chanting. So if we put all of our focus and our resolution in how we can increase the quality of our chanting, then we can make some very significant progress and achieve this position of being very steadfast in devotional service. And so, what are some things we can do to improve the quality of our chanting? As this wonderful Sangha facilitates, being, very disciplined on the time of our chanting, very regulated, chanting at fixed time, ideally in the Brahma Muhurta, early morning time, trying to complete our rounds in one sitting, if possible, chanting in a very measured way, very clear, and articulating each of the words, chanting out loud so that you can hear and engage the tongue, creating a nice loop. So many, so much discussion is there, and many wonderful classes are there on the quality of chanting. But we can aspire, possibly, if we so desire, to make some resolutions as we approach this New Year, really focused on this good chanting, knowing and having faith that by very good chanting, all the other desirable qualities will become manifest by the result of very, very attentive chanting. And that's why Srila Prabhupada emphasized so much, just chant and be happy. This is the means of success. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave us the perfect path. He left us only 8 verses. And these 8 verses speak about chanting. The first verse of Shishashtakam, provides us the 7 glories of chanting of the holy names. And in the second verse, if we can begin to appreciate, what is our misfortune? If we ask people, what is your misfortune? You'll hear so many things. Not enough money, not enough sleep, not enough respect, not enough this, not enough that. This is my misfortune. But actually, our only misfortune, Durdevam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, our only misfortune that we really have is we don't have a taste for chanting the holy names of the Lord. No attraction to the holy names. This is our only misfortune. And if we can pray to Krishna to keep reminding us of that and inspire us to develop this attraction to the holy names, then everything else becomes perfect. So we center our idea of what is our misfortune and pray very intensely and sincerely to Krishna and to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then we can become very fortunate and develop some attraction to the holy names and thus make progress. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered the six Goswamis, specifically directly instructing Rupa and Sanatana Goswami to establish all of this, all these principles on the basis of Shastra, and asked them to go to Vrindavan and extract the essence of bhakti and to write prolifically, and also to excavate all the wonderful places of Vrindavan. So we see that, and thus Rupa Goswami saying 24/7 one should be engaged in the chanting of the holy names, and many other scriptures that they wrote. So this is the ultimate essence of this 8th verse, being steadfast in spiritual life by becoming free from all of the material desires. Prithu Maharaj achieved that through the practice of pranayam. Our prescribed practice is to achieve that same success by the practice of chanting of the holy names, knowing and having full faith that by performing this Sankirtana Yajna, one can achieve the highest perfection of life. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach us, and what he instructed all of us to follow. And so that is the presentation on text 8. I thought if we could take just a few minutes and carry the discussion a little bit forward with the 6 Goswamis and discuss a little bit about Jiva Goswami, since yesterday was his disappearance day. And so just to spend a couple minutes on discussing Jiva Goswami, and then we can have some discussion. So Jiva Goswami was, as we know, one of the 6 Goswamis, the principal lieutenants in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, or you could say generals in the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan army. Very important services each of them performed for the propagation of this philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so Jiva Goswami, just kind of for reference, he was the son of Rup and Sanatana Goswami's younger brother, Anupam. Anupam was the name Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him. His birth name was Vallabha, so you may see 2 references. But so he is the younger brother, the son of their younger brother. So Rup and Sanatana Goswami are uncles to Jiva Goswami. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Ramkeli to give initiation to Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami was a very young child at that time and had darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu blessed him, putting his feet on the head of Jiva Goswami, and then noted that this young boy would become a great scholar in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. He would become a very illustrious scholar. And so we'll see that here in a few minutes. In his childhood, Jiva Goswami was very attracted to deity worship. He had his Krishna Balaram deities, and he would even fall asleep at night embracing these deities, and performing many pastimes with them. His family thought he was just playing with them as dolls, but he was actually rendering very personal and devotional service. When Rupa and Sanatana Goswami left their government service to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, and Anupam, his father, also went to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After some time, Anupam left his body, and Jiva Goswami became very unsettled and was in separation, and very eager to also join this movement, and his family suggested that he go to Navadvip to see Lord Nityananda to ease his pain. And when Jiva Goswami went to Navadvip, Lord Nityananda showed him very special mercy. He personally took Jiva Goswami Navadvip Mandal Parikrama and showed him all of the beautiful pastime sites of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and relishing all the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip. Lord Nityananda, gave great blessing to Jiva Goswami, and then it is said that he instructed him to go to Banaras there and study Sanskrit under one of the disciples of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. After Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was delivered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he instructed one of his disciples, and that disciple was going to teach Jiva Goswami, his Sanskrit scholarship, and Jiva Goswami very quickly. He was a brilliant scholar as a child. Everything came to him very, very quickly and easily. He was supremely intelligent. And while it normally takes 12 years to complete the study of Sanskrit, in just a couple of years, Jiva Goswami was fully versed. And so he left Benares and went to Vrindavan, and he went to go serve under his uncles. That was the instruction given to him. And so he went to Vrindavan to support the activities of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. There, Jiva Goswami formally took initiation from Rupa Goswami, and took initiation from Rupa Goswami, and performed many wonderful services for Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. Rupa Goswami had a dream from Krishna saying that you should make some deities for Jiva Goswami. He is very strongly desiring to render devotional service to the deities. And so Rupa Goswami personally carved these very famous Radha Damodar deities for Jiva Goswami. And these deities today reside in Jaipur. We have the replica deities in Vrindavan Dham and the Radha Damodar temple. But these deities were carved by Rupa Goswami for Jiva Goswami to personally worship. In terms of the scholarly aspects, Jiva Goswami was an unparalleled scholar. He many pastimes, but his scholarship was so strong. He was actually editing the writings of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, specifically Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Jiva Goswami was editing due to his extraordinarily expert scholarship, while Rupa Goswami was directly instructed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It was Jiva Goswami who was given the service to edit those writings, and so you can see his very illustrious position. There's a very famous pastime of when Rupa Goswami was writing this Nectar of Devotion. And Vallabhacharya from another sampradaya had come to see Rupa Goswami. They had some relationship. They knew each other well, and when Vallabhacharya was reading some of the pages, he noted a couple of what he thought were errors, mistakes. And he mentioned to Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami, took a very, humble position, saying that yes, thank you for clarifying, because Vallabhacharya was, much senior to him or elderly, and so Rupa Goswami, took that. But Jiva Goswami was fanning Rupa Goswami while this interaction was taking place, and internally he was becoming very upset that how someone could say, my guru has made an error. And so after Vallabhacharya left, he went to the Yamuna to take bath, and so Jiva Goswami followed him very quietly, and there he confronted Vallabhacharya and said, how you could find a fault in my guru's writing? What fault you found? And Vallabhacharya presented his case, and Jiva Goswami very quickly smashed that idea and very quickly corrected this idea that there was a mistake. And Vallabhacharya was shocked. Said, how this young boy was able to so quickly and effortlessly defeat me. And he went back to Rupa Goswami and offered his obeisances and said, who is this young boy that is so expert in this philosophy? And Rupa Goswami said, that is my disciple Jiva Goswami. But actually Rupa Goswami became very angry at Jiva Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada comments on this in a couple of different places that, Rupa Goswami, his anger was to show us the importance. Rupa Goswami was angry. He told Jiva Goswami why you could not, tolerate, why you had to, go and try to correct him. You were looking for pride because now Vallabhacharya has come back and glorified you, and that was what you were looking for. Of course, that was not the goal of Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami, his position was, yes, Rupa Goswami, you can tolerate because you are very, tolerant that he corrected you incorrectly. But me, I cannot take someone criticizing, my spiritual master. And so both moods are very, very sweet. The story goes on, but I'll just end it there for purpose of time. But so like this, Jiva Goswami was a great scholar. Actually, he composed over 500,000 Sanskrit verses. Just to put that in context, this entire Srimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. And Jiva Goswami composed 500,000 verses. So you can see the volume of literatures. There are some 25 or so books, the Sandarbhas, Gopala Champu, and many, many others. Srila Prabhupada has listed them in a couple of different places. But he was a prolific scholar. And he was really the chief scholar amongst all the 6 Goswamis. And then, after Rupa and Sanatan Goswami completed their pastimes and service here and returned back home to the spiritual world, it was Jiva Goswami who then took the lead of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So he became the leader of that and carried on the mission and performed many, many services, including of which inaugurating the book distribution process, inspiring Srinivasacharya, Shyamananda Pandit, and Narottam Das Thakur to begin to distribute the writings of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. And so, just a short synopsis of Jiva Goswami. He left this world in our Western calendar in the year 1618. He lived for about 85 years. And is a very, very illustrious personality in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. And yesterday was his disappearance day, so I thought it would be an opportunity to spend just a few minutes glorifying him. So thank you for tolerating that. So this concludes today's presentation. So I'll wrap up here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Any questions or corrections, clarifications, or discussion we can have today?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanva Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful lecture, and really like the many pastimes that you mentioned about the Jiva Goswami, especially the one which about the encounter with the Vallabhacharya, and the importance of chanting. Yeah, I do not have any questions at this point of time. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dhanva Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranama, Auguste Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Very, very beautiful class, Prabhuji, and very nicely you explained about the Ashtanga Yoga process and all the niyam and asana like that. So Prabhuji, see, Prathu Maharaj, he was already practicing the devotional service like we are doing it. We are also doing the every day we do our puja and sadhana and everything, and we do our material duties also. But at the end, Prathu Maharaj renounced everything and he went to forest.
Mm-hmm.
So in this situation, and then after that he was doing all the Ashtanga yoga process, like sitting on the asana and following so many austerities and doing dhyana and like that. So do we have to do that, or just chanting Hare Krishna is the enough? Like,
Yeah, we are very fortunate because as Prabhupada says, the only means of elevation is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That's the direct quote from the second paragraph. So, I mentioned in the beginning, we are very fortunate because we do not have to undergo these intense austerities. I think in a prior purport or somewhere I read just recently, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, sort of gave us the practical means, which is, we can take residence in a temple and render devotional service as a means of practicing, this vanaprastha ashram and focusing exclusively on devotional service. So, because the grihastha ashram, it is a concession for regulated sense enjoyment. But when the ashram is structured in such a way that, at roughly the midpoint of one's life, one can become, detangled from principal family responsibilities and focused on spiritual life. So, but that doesn't have to mean that one goes deep into the forest and is, eating leaves and wearing tree bark and lying on the floor of the forest. It's not practical. But what's practical for us is to, come to the point of, minimizing our responsibilities, not neglecting our responsibilities, but, managing our family life in such a way that we can focus on good chanting and rendering a devotional service. So this intense austerity is not recommended. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically said we have very little austerity to do. Chant, follow Ekadashi, celebrate the festivals of the Lord, and read Srimad Bhagavatam, right, and render some service. This is the austerity we have to follow. It's relatively straightforward, but in even our simplest form, getting up early in the morning and chanting the names of the Lord, that feels like an austerity, right? But comparatively to what we see here, that is very simple. Chanting in the comforts of our own home with air conditioning or heating, depending on the season, an alarm clock to wake us up from a soft bed, and still it feels like too much austerity, right? So by reading this, we can actually become inspired that, boy, whatever we have to do is quite simple compared to what was recommended in prior ages. We can take advantage of this great fortune and become sincere in chanting. So we don't have to. It is not even recommended that we try to, go to the forest. Srila Prabhupada, always would say, when you do that, all you'll do is attract attention. One will become proud and fall to our sense desires. So instead, stay in the association of devotees, render service, and chant the holy names. That is the only thing that is required and needed for complete perfection. And sometimes we have some doubts, right? How only chanting? Can it really be true? Well, we recite the 10 offenses to the holy names every day. And the 5th offense is to consider the glories of chanting the holy names to be imagination. What does that mean? It means when we say only chant, that's all we need, we have doubts. Can the holy names be that powerful that I don't have to do anything else? Right? So that's why we recite those verses of the offenses of the holy name to help remind us, yes, these holy names are so powerful that they're inclusive of all other practices. So the only austerity we need to follow, chant our rounds very, very nicely, sincerely, enthusiastically. That is the great benediction from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the great blessing he gave all of us.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very, very wonderful. Thank you so much. We are so fortunate to be born in Kali Yuga. So you have to just chant and very nice to have all these austerities and everything. By reading those, we feel like ours is like nothing. Waking up.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dhanyavad.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Prabhu, for a very nice and specific focused class, Prabhu. So my question is like in say in Bhagavad Gita and in Bhagavatam, we keep hearing about the other processes that are followed in other yugas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we say in Kali Yuga it is not applicable. So like why so much emphasis, like why it is mentioned so many times in the scriptures, like in other ages what is followed, and in Kali, and my question is, Prabhu, do we downsize, like because we are saying it is not relevant, are we downsizing it, or because we don't pay much attention to the process?
It's not that we're downsizing or minimizing it. We're just saying that time, place, and circumstance are very important, right? And so what we're saying is that there are processes in place based on time, place, and circumstance. So in today's time, place, and circumstance, this is the prescribed process. But in another time, place, and circumstance, there may be another or different prescribed process. It doesn't make one right or wrong, but it makes one more relevant in that specific situation. And so, just like this, you have two medicines, but based on your sickness, one medicine is relevant, the other is not. Doesn't make one medicine less perfect than the other. It just means based on my situation, one medicine is going to fix the ailment I currently have. So like that, these processes, they are very powerful, but based on the circumstance, a particular process is more suitable. And in this age, we see Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam kalo nashteva 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 gatiranyata. And Srila Prabhupada comments in this purport. He says that the Shastras perform a great service to the yogis by instructing that in this age, don't spend your time doing these other processes because they're not relevant in the current situation. So they save one from following a process that may not work. But it doesn't mean that those processes are not relevant. They're just not relevant to us today in our current situation. And so that's how we can understand. And the reason it's important, why Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he explains karma yoga, then nishkam karma yoga, then jnana yoga, then buddhi yoga, then ultimately bhakti yoga. Why? Because our fickle mind, he could have just said sarva dharmam pratipyaja mamekam sharanam vraja, right? But our mind, we need to know, okay, what are all my options? Then understand how each option works and doesn't work, and then understand the best. We want to exhaust so that all of our doubts will be cleared. All these things are presented. And then we can understand very scientifically why specifically devotional service is the ultimate means of perfection. And that's why Krishna says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto manjrimam namaskuru. Right? You do these four things. So the reason they're all presented, and we study them because they're important, is to understand everything in context and then make the perfect decision, right? Giving maybe another mundane example, you go to university. There you have many different fields of study you can follow. Well, if you explore all of the options and then find the one that is most suitable to you, you can rest assured, I've taken I'm comfortable in my path, not wondering, what about something else? Right? So like this, Krishna explained all the different options, then says, Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratma. He tells us, this is now the best. I've given you all of it, but this is the best. And then he tells Arjuna at the end, now you decide what to do. Right? So that's the context, how we can understand it and why it's presented. So is that okay?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for the nice explanation, Prabhu. So, Prabhuji, in the purport, it is mentioned that as far as pranayam is concerned, chanting of the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy are also considered pranayam. So, Prabhuji, can you explain how this pranayam can be, related to, what is this here? It's saying name of the Lord, dancing in ecstasy, Prabhu. And because the reason I ask is, Prabhu, like even Prabhupada in most of the translations, when he does that, he's always trying to compare to, Bhakti Yoga and the current Sankirtan Yajna process, Prabhuji. So thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, so what is prana is air, right? And yama means to control. So we're controlling the breathing. The breathing. So in chanting of the holy names, we also have to regulate the breathing, right? When we chant in a meter, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. There's a regulated breathing process that is included in that chanting of the holy names, specifically the mantra meditation. So there is an aspect of kind of controlling and regulating that breathing. And so that is the connection that Srila Prabhupada is making with pranayam, and again including the dancing. To feel the body, there's a breathing process associated with that. So and as you rightfully said, Prabhupada is always guiding us that how bhakti is the all-encompassing process. Remember, as you go on each rung of the yoga ladder, when you go from karma yoga to jnana yoga includes what is achieved in karma yoga and jnana yoga. From jnana yoga to go to ashtanga yoga. Ashtanga yoga includes jnana yoga and karma yoga. And same with buddhi yoga, and ultimately bhakti. So bhakti includes all the prior rungs of the ladder. Or similarly, if you take another example, as you go higher in education from first grade to third grade to fifth grade to 10th grade, if by 10th grade you're already including everything that is prior, right? You're just going further. So like that, bhakti is it includes everything. There's nothing missing from it. And that's why Srila Prabhupada is always connecting how each of the processes of bhakti include anything from a lower rung on this yoga ladder. So,
yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Another question. I think Mataji had a question.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else has any question or comment?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev Ji, thank you very much for wonderful nectarian class. Jiva Goswami stories, and yes, questions are also. Hari Bol, Jai Jai Shri Radhe Shyam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. If no one has any question or comments, we can end now. Let's pay our obeisances to Prabhuji and all the Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Grace Nitya Krishna Prabhu ki jai. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.